Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's regular meeting. Oh, actually, sorry. Call tonight's regular council meeting to be suspended and the committee of whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor 80. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, we'll call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of February 28th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Just before we get started, I'm going to read a quick statement of the chair, which kind of explains how committee of the whole meetings work. So for those of you present this evening and those watching via television, let me please explain that a committee of the whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of council. This meeting allows council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but is less formal than a regular council meeting. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be made at the next regular council meeting. At that time, the recommendations of the previous committee of the whole meeting will be adopted and acted upon. Some key points to remember when making your presentation are: remember that council meetings are televised and it is very important to introduce yourself and, if applicable, name of the organization that you're representing and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. When presenting, please address any concerns or comments to the chair of the meeting. Keep your presentation brief. 5 minutes would be ideal as council has several presentations on their agenda. Once you have completed your presentations, please ensure you summarize any requests or concerns. The chair will then ask council members if they have any questions. Remember, there will be no decision made at this meeting or on any requests or concerns you have made. And lastly, the request will be referred to staff for review, report, and recommendation to council. Council's meetings are very full. We would appreciate your consideration of your time allotment. So first, we have some presentations, and then folks are free to come and chat with us about any other topic as well. So we'll start with Aaron Thompson, who's the transit planner for BC Transit regarding the Transit Future Service Plan.
Yes, I'm here. I can go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. I will share my screen. Okay.
I'll have to turn the volume up.
Second. Okay. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for having me. My name is Aaron Thompson. I'm a transit planner with BC Transit, and I'm here today to present the Transit Future Service Plan for Prince Rupert and Port Edward. Now, we've already gone to the District of Port Edward, and they've already seen this previously, so we're hoping that you'll also like what we've done. So I'd like to first take a moment to acknowledge that Prince Rupert and Port Edward on the traditional lands of the Tsimshian First Nations and Gitgala First Nations. While myself here in Victoria and Luxterra are on the lands of the Algonquin people, also known as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nation communities. So I have a lot of material here to cover, so I will be going through this rather quickly, but all the details, of course, are available in the plan. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. But the real vision of this plan starts with the previous work that was done in 2012 with the previous service review for both Prince Rupert and Port Edward. And this transit plan tries to build off of that, as well as the both the official community plans of both communities. As well as it ties in with some of our BC Transit corporate initiatives, including the low carbon fleet program, digital on demand, the electronic fare program, Next Ride, and our BC Transit Development Referral Program. So this is a bit about how transit is currently working in Prince Rupert and Port Edward. It's just some more background work, but looking at kind of the snapshot of the stats and how it's performing right now. Since 2012, there has been a small decrease in ridership with different fluctuations. And this also includes the decrease caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, but we have seen a 3.8% decrease in ridership from 2012 to 2021. But we're still seeing 150,000 annual rides. The service operates Monday to Saturday, 6 days a week. Operates on a fleet of five fleet vehicles, providing 9,800 annual service hours. Um, it provides 15.3 rides per service hour and generates $214,000 in revenue a year, which equates to an 18.6% cost recovery. Then these details about Port Edward, which we'll go over. As part of the development of this plan, we do look at how transit need is in the community and how that changes over time. And within both Prince Rupert and Port Edward, we have found that there's both a higher than average youth population, a lower than average senior population compared to BC as a whole, which can have which presents challenges and opportunities. Opportunities to really create lifetime transit riders by catering towards the youth. Here are some of the details about the system performance, but I won't go into too much. The biggest one, of course, is understanding the impacts of COVID-19. Throughout all our transit systems in the province, COVID-19 had a huge impact. We see here that just at the start of the pandemic in April 2020, we saw the COVID low point where we dropped 91% of the ridership. But then that quickly recovered within 2 to 3 months and has been kind of steadily recovering since then. I'll just pass some of this. So as part of this plan, we of course engage with the local communities. As part of that, we had kind of two main phases. First, we met with local stakeholders. And then we did a online campaign with our Bang the Table platform at engage.bctransit.com with its own project page, which is still live. And through that, we were able to gather feedback from the public and really get from what they heard. So moving right along into that, what we heard was that the 53 Crestview is consistently identified as needing additional service, followed by the 52 Summit and then the 51 Seal Cove. Improving weekday service span is more important than improving Saturday service span. Introducing Sunday service is a priority. Improving existing services is more important than introducing new service, such as new service to the container port or the airport. Safety, comfort, and accessibility at bus stops are a concern of residents, but at the end of the day, majority of participants are very satisfied or satisfied with the transit system, which was 94% of Prince Rupert residents that took the survey. So looking at looking at what we heard from the public, we've developed several service priorities that the city could pursue in the short and medium term. This is the brief descriptions of them. So later service on weekdays, introducing Sunday service, earlier service on weekdays, and then the last changes for the district of Prince Rupert. That's adjusting the Route 60, which could have an impact on local ridership along that route. So this is these slides are just the details of those expansions and those service changes, broken out by route as well as the resources that would have to be attributed to each individual or the total expansion. For all those different categories, increasing the service span by introducing the Sunday service. This is the change for Port Edward. So there is a small routing change that within Prince Rupert to hopefully that would hopefully help local ridership there as well. Looking longer term, we'd be looking at introducing new routes to the container port, which could also look at reallocation of some resources from the 55 Barry Bay to help fund that expansion. And then really looking at increasing the Spanish service on Saturdays with later evening service and earlier morning service. And then getting into some infrastructure priorities. The real thing in the community is continued investment in the bus stop infrastructure. And that can be buoyed by applying through the BC Shelter Program to help fund new shelters, or through the mine abetments funding program, which is operated by the Ministry of Transportation. And recently, the city was successful in getting some funding for the downtown exchange. So that is a project I believe is going into tender shortly. So kind of just about some of the moving forward. So we typically, for a system this size, monitor performance on an annual basis, but we may monitor that more closely as significant service changes are implemented. And service improvements are integrated into our 3-year transit improvement process, which is updated on an annual basis, which we would look at doing any of the service improvements. But of course, additional target engagement may be conducted as we look at implementing a service change. Some details about some of the investment strategies. And finally, just the acknowledgement of everyone that helped make this plan possible. So we'd like to thank everyone from the community that participated in our engagement, as well as staff from both the city and the district. Thank you.
Great, Aaron. Thank you so much. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, a few questions for you. First of all, I noticed most of your statistics are from the census in 2016, which is somewhat out of date by almost 1,000 or 2,000. Also, when you look at the decrease in service, it's all around the pandemic start. And even though we're still on the tail end of it, ridership would still be down because of that. So I think these statistics are irrelevant when you look at rideage and that in Prince Rupert. Also, in your route planning, we have a senior housing project called Cedar Village, which is up between 7th East and 8th in the 400 block. And the residents of this have to walk anywhere from 3 to 5 blocks to get to a bus route. And I don't think it would be too far out of the way to have the Seal Cove bus do a loop where it went through there and then back to its original route, leaving it at, say, Hayes Cove Circle and then coming back the same way by Petrocan and then going back up onto 5th. I think it's something you should look at. I don't think it's mentioned at all in your plans for future routes. I don't think it would add more than 5, 6, 7 minutes to the route. And as far as you're talking about shelters, which are something the city of Prince Rupert needs because of our weather, it's not sunny all the time. Have you ever thought of going to the college and looking at their apprenticeship program and getting them to help build shelters that are prefabbed and could be put into place in different places in the Northwest?
That is not a program that we reached out to. No.
It's just
also just say there are opportunities to partner in that way. I know at UNBC, the engineering program there, they built a shelter for their school as well. So there's definitely opportunities we're willing to explore, but obviously it's not something that we have explored at this point.
Okay, and don't get me wrong, I think we've got an excellent bus service in Prince Rupert. It serves the community very well. I think you'll see the increase in rideage, but I don't know the exact years, but a while back, a former councillor pointed out to us when we put the rates up by 25 cents, we went from one of the best rideage percentages in the province down quite a bit. And I think in a lot of cases, especially with a high percentage of youth in that in Prince Rupert and some of the lower income areas, that's why rideage is affected. It's, 50 cents to $1 a day can mean quite a bit of difference to different people, especially seniors and that, and youth of the community. So I think it's very important that we always keep the rates where we can hopefully afford them. Thank you very much.
Councillor Morrow.
Thanks very much for your presentation and for your time in being here tonight. I have basically two questions for you. The first is on the service recommendations and the priorities that you've outlined. I'm wondering if those are built exclusively on your stakeholder engagement and your survey results, or is that a combination of that outreach plus ridership data by route or by day or by hour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of it is based off of the public feedback, but it's also supported by our ridership data. So where we have seen requests for additional service, that does align with where we see the most demand for service as well. So we kind of double check it through that means. So we have both the data and then what the people are telling us.
Okay, thank you. And so the way that you've outlined your recommendations then is you've used a metric of annual service hours. Recognizing that every community is different, would you happen to have what that works out to in Prince Rupert for what is the cost of an annual service hour, and therefore what would be the cost to the municipality of adopting any of those recommendations?
Lindsay, maybe you can answer this a bit better, but we do use annual service hours because costs can shift over time. So to keep our plans kind of relevant, we do make sure to use the hours because that's a much more stable metric from us for planning. But Lindsay, maybe you can answer the cost question.
Yeah, so we go through a process of identifying some potential, expansions or initiatives, and we seek, approval from the council of whether we want to pursue those. And we go through what we call a TIPS process, is a transit improvement process. Through that process, we identify what the expansion initiative is. We go through a costing exercise and are able to provide an estimated cost. Again, every year our costs are changing, and so we do this annually whenever we identify those initiatives. So if there are expansion initiatives that we want to pursue, it'll be about June probably when we go through that costing exercise and are able to provide a more, sound cost of what we actually think that this will be. But yeah, every year costs are changing or fluctuating as well.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Thank you. So just as a follow-up then, I think all of your recommendations are obviously in line with what a lot of community members are looking for. And obviously if it was supported by your data, that just undergirds that as well. But I'm wondering then, in terms of council's process for trying to set priorities and budget, do we wait until June, or do you want us to be having this discussion as a council prior to that so we can give direction to BC Transit on which of those priorities, or all of them, we want to cost on?
So I'd say this plan is kind of, a 5 to 7 year roadmap of some identified options of how we can improve and progress the transit system. So we can have discussions definitely at this point of whether we want to pursue any of those options. We are in, a good amount of contact with staff and work with staff quite closely to get a sense of, what direction we'd like to go and whether we want to pursue that. Budget day was obviously last week. And so the province actually did not approve any expansion initiatives for this year. Obviously we're still in a COVID environment, and so we haven't quite got back up to pre-COVID ridership. And so, I think we're doing a lot of work to be able to bring back some of those, choice riders. We have a stable core base of ridership right now of customers that rely on that transit system. But, we're trying to understand what's this new landscape, how are people's lives shifted, what does work look like now, so that we can adjust and make sure that we understand what is this new transit landscape. before we pursue, I guess, any expansion initiatives. So I think this is a perfect time for us to be able to do sort of a plan to understand, where are we going, but also work towards, building that ridership base back up.
Other questions? Okay, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it today. Both of you guys have a great evening, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay, next up we have Carrie Ann, I believe is Carrie Ann Smith at Swing Smith Cages regarding a proposal use of Ken Fiscal Warehouse for indoor batting cages. Welcome. My mic. Oh, your mic will need to be moved closer to you. Do you want a moment there, Miss Miller, to get that? Yeah. Do you want to do that? Sure. Let's get that for sure. Okay, just one moment here. Can we continue?
Yeah, if you want to continue on, Mr. Mayor,
Okay, you'll be okay?
my office. I will
Okay.
upload the screen onto mine so I can do it in my office.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so next we have Kendall Standring regarding vicious dog designation. Welcome. Welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kendall Sandry, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about my dog Chev. Back in 2015, when I was 22 years of age, I wanted a dog very badly, and Chev was the end result. I drove south on a weekend and picked him up as a puppy. Ever since then, him and I have been one. I can only recall leaving him in good care once for about 10 days or so. I raised him, trained him, bathed him, and fed him. We did everything together, and we went everywhere together. More adventures, both good and bad, than I can even remember. In all this time and all these adventures, as well as experiences, I took Chev because I wanted to ensure that he was a good and social dog. Chev has never run away from me or being on the loose without my consent. He has been around children, cats, and other dogs his entire life without incident. He was raised around my friend's children for the first couple of years of his life. Then in 2018, Kirsty and I got together, and Braden, who is now 10, also came into mine and Chev's life. Braden and Chev get along famously and play together every single day. We joke that Chev is our babysitter and safety dog due to his loving and safe demeanor around Braden and other children in the community on our many walks. Over the years, Chev has met hundreds of people, animals, and been in all kinds of situations. I have never had an incident occur like the one with Carson Beckwith. I feel extremely bad about what happened to Carson and never imagined that this would be a problem that would happen as Chev was so well socialized. It was extremely bad timing and an unfortunately overly excited dog. Chev was always contained in my yard on my property Chev was contained in my yard on my property like he always has been for the past 7.5 years during the time of this unfortunate incident. I'm struggling to know what I could have done differently. Chev has been socialized since birth with both small and big people, prior and post incident, with no concern. For whatever reason, Jeff Beckwith seems to have a hatred for pit bull dogs, as it clearly shows in his statement to this unfortunate incident. My dog Chev is in fact not a pit bull at all, but instead a shepherd cross mix. Neither Jeff or Sandy have ever met Chev but for whatever reason, they seem to think that he is a pit bull, which is false. Blaming a dog's actions upon its breed was debunked and proven wrong years ago. Either way, the fact of the matter is that my dog is not a vicious pit bull, is not the vicious pit bull portrayed in the Beckwith statement. If a certain breed is so important to them, then it should be noted that my dog is not that breed, and he should be judged so accordingly. Chev has a bad habit of rearing up like a horse when he is excited and greeting someone. I believe that after sniffing Carson, that is what he did, and their faces colliding, causing the small puncture wounds and bruising. It is reasonable to assume that those are not bite marks on Carson's face, but simply impact marks as Chev reared up to greet Carson and their faces collided. I also believe that it is reasonable to say that if Chev had actually bitten Carson, that the damage would have been much more severe considering how big his teeth actually are. Chev has always been my go-to when I'm in a bad place. I take him for walks to ease my mind. I pet and brush him to settle me down, and he listens to me when I talk about things that I am comfortable talking to anyone else about. He has always been my crutch, and for that I cannot stand by while someone throws false accusations his way. Because no matter what, I know he is always by my side. I am not the only one that feels this way about Chev. Every single person in my family loves him as if he were a person. One person that gets down and plays with him the most, though, is our son, Braden. Every child should have the joys and lessons of owning a dog. It is extremely good for their growth, as I'm sure many people will agree. Braden has already expressed extreme concern and in tears has asked me what was going to happen to our dog Chev after this unfortunate incident. I understand that in the future we will have to be even more careful with Chev to ensure that nothing like this will ever happen again. Having said that, I do not believe taking a family's dog away from them is fair or humane, especially when kids are involved. I also do not think that muzzling, leashing, and taking away all of a dog's freedoms would help or make a dog less of a threat. On top of that, the requirements for the fence expected for a dog that is on the vicious list are unreasonable, price-wise and also with how our property is laid out. It is simply not doable without extreme expense and a ridiculous amount of work. I simply ask that if you have a dog and have never had an incident with the dog, put yourself in my shoes, because I was in your position not very long ago, and I did everything a dog owner is supposed to do in order to have a good dog. Unfortunately, there was an extremely bad timed incident of letting the excited dogs out at the same time as someone came onto our deck unannounced. I am a fair and reasonable person, and I realize that we will have to be more careful in the future, and I can guarantee that something like this will never happen again. When I went to City Hall to talk to Rosa Miller and Jeff Easingwood, the bylaw officer, I was led to believe that there would be a discussion about the topic. I was misled about that. When Kirsty and I went to the meeting, they simply put the vicious dog contract on the table and told me to read and sign it, and that would be the end of it. I tried to have a discussion and even told them that my dog was not a pit bull, like he was falsely being accused of. This got me nowhere, and this got me nowhere with them or with a reasonable conversation about the topic. I'm extremely sorry for what happened to Carson Beckwith, and I hope that he makes a full recovery. As a family, we will be taking extra steps to ensure that our dog is never in this situation again. Steps like putting a lock on the gate so that no one can come into our yard without invitation. Also using our downstairs door for the main access to our home for visitors. By using this door, both dogs are unable to access visitors due to an interior door and also a baby gate in their way. I take responsibility and accountability for the event that took place. If I believe that my dog Chev was dangerous or vicious in any way towards anyone, then I would take the required steps needed in owning a dog with that label. I am challenging the accusations against him because I, along with many other people that know Chev, know that he does not have a vicious or dangerous character or temperament. Gotta do a slide here, sorry. This one. So this is late last summer. This is something we do often. I take my son to the park with the dog. I would like to note in this picture, we're at the park. He's on a leash, which is slack, so he's not tense. He has a helmet on his head. He's just a goofy big dog. There's kids playing in the background on a spinning toy of some kind, and he has absolutely no need to bother them in any way. Next slide, please. This is just at home every day, chilling with our puppy who's a year old, and he puts up with him very well. No aggression at all. Next photo. Same thing, he's been socialized with cats, many animals, farm animals as well, but that's here nor there. They sleep together on the bed. Next slide, please. Often I'll come home and this is what I see. Again, he's extremely big, but he's extremely docile and gentle. Just gets excited sometimes. Next slide, please. This is vacationing last summer on the ferry going to Victoria. They're having a nap in the back of the car. Another thing that's quite normal in our family. Next slide, please. Again, in the car, relaxing. They're pretty inseparable on any given day. Next slide, please. Again, Kirsty there is not feeling too well, and he just wants to be there by her side. And one more, please. Him again with our son Braden. Again. Now I'd like to note that his teeth are roughly 3/4 of an inch long. And I know that there was injury to Carson, but I do not believe that my dog bit him. Otherwise, I feel he would not have a cheek, or it would have at least been much more severe. I feel like his front teeth collided when jumping up. Unfortunately, of course, because no one wants a child to get hurt, and I feel extremely sorry for the child. Next slide, please. This is our front deck. So the dogs came out our top door there. As Carson came through the gate, we were unaware he was there. Usually, you know, someone goes to the downstairs door, or we know someone's coming. Usually we know we can hear someone coming up the stairs, but we just simply did not know he was there. And the dogs ran out to greet him. Next slide, please. Now this is showing how it goes into our backyard, and how, given the layout of Rupert, how hard it would be to make a 6-foot fence on our property, because you must go through the front. We do not have a back door in our home, and in the back of the house, it's very unlevel and extremely hard to work with. Next slide, please. And that's just the front of the house. Behind the trailer there is where our other door is, which we are planning on using for our main entrance, and putting a lock on that gate at the top of the stairs so that something like this does not happen again. Next slide, please. And there again is just kind of point of view from the door. Next slide, please. I realize that this, to some people, might not seem like a important decision, but for me and my family, it could be life-altering, and it is a very, very big decision for our family. So I thank you for your time, and I'd like to call on Councillor Barry Cunningham, because this dog has actually been in your home with your grandchildren and spent many a night with your grandchildren camping, and also in Port Ed. Having said that, I appreciate your time, and we'll be waiting for a response.
Thank you. I'll just tell you how extremely unfortunate this event is for
sure.
both parties. And regardless of what people say, that's not how council looks at things.
For sure.
I think the challenge here is that unfortunately a child was harmed,
Yes.
right? And obviously we see photos of that, which then unfortunately kicks into a legal process.
Yeah.
That it's not council to decide how the situation went through it, how that all happened. A child's been harmed, and that needs to be assessed in some
For sure.
fashion. So what I will commit to, though, is that we'll get our staff to come back with a review on how this process should move forward, whether the bylaw needs to be relooked at, that kind of thing. But right now we have to respect both parties involved in the matter, and you certainly made your case, and I think there's definitely nuances to these types of situations. But we also have to respect that a child has been harmed, and we have to go and do the proper steps. So you've been heard, and I just want to look you in the eye and tell you that you've been heard, and we know exactly the challenge you're going to face, and we know the challenge what this family's facing and their
For
fears
sure.
that they're having. And so our staff's going to manage this process, and we'll get them to come back with a recommendation for us, and they'll be in contact with you. And that's my commitment to you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. Okay, next, are we prepared for the presentation?
Yes, we
Mitch?
are, Mr. Mayor. I do have it up on the screen. So
Okay.
if Ms. Smith would like to present, I can move the slides along for her.
The power of technology. Okay, Kieran, you can come back to the mic. Yeah. Welcome.
Pull her up. Can we pull up the presentation, please?
Nice logo, actually. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is she gonna make it full slide? Yeah. And I'll just let her know when I want to change the slide.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to me. My name is Carrie Ann Smith, and my business plan is Swing Smith Cages. It'll be an indoor batting cage, and I am here to tell you why I believe I am a proper candidate for the Canfisco waterfront location. Next slide, please. So what is Swing Smith Cages? Well, it is an indoor, state-of-the-art batting cage with holographic images of major league stadiums. So what that means is when you walk into the door, it'll feel like you're walking into a major league stadium. There'll be 5 different pitching machines with a variation of speeds. There'll be a baseball, 2 slow pitch, as that's the main thing in Rupert, a medium, and a fast pitch. There's going to be a pro shop with baseball and softball equipment, as right now there's nowhere in town to buy bats or gloves. As well as there's going to be the first Pizza by the Slice in Prince Rupert at the Dugout. And I will be using HitTrax technology, which is a technical advanced training system and allows me to have off-season play. Next slide, please. So my customer segments, there'll be 3 main customer segments that I focus on, mostly being the Glory Dares, which are Prince Rupert residents between the ages of 19 to 50 who all play sports and will often be found playing multiple sports. I did a survey in October, and it was suggested that they would be there bi-weekly, as well as 58.2% of adults in Prince Rupert play sports, giving me a target market size of 2,634 adults. The next one would be the coaches and children of Prince Rupert, being 16 to 18-year-olds, mostly looking to have fun. It's also important to note that their main form of transportation is carpool and foot. Out of 2,270 kids, 43.2% play sports, giving me an estimate of 981 kids. So my next profile would be tourism, and that'll mostly be out-of-town ball players and cruise ship patrons. It's really important that I am located within walking distance to the cruise ship terminal and downtown. In 2017-2018, 17,000 passengers stepped foot onto Prince Rupert soil. I understand I'm not going to be able to get all of these people, but my numbers will be a lot higher if it is within walking distance. Next, please. So my value proposition map, I'll just go through it quickly. This is just stating that I've looked at my customers' jobs. I know how to relieve those pains by having indoor batting cage. My lineups will be a lot shorter. I've got pain relievers with my HitTrax technology, and you can go to the next slide. For customer relationships, I believe that Tourism Prince Rupert is going to be really important for me, as well as Pizza by the Slice. HitTrax technology that I'll get into a little bit further, and I do plan on hosting home run derbies and weekend tournaments with this technology. Next slide, please. So what is this HitTrax that I keep talking about? Well, it is the ability to host tournaments and fall league play. It's an interactive system that's everywhere in North America. So what that means is you can see how well your standings are based on somebody in Texas or somewhere else in North America with really good baseball players. Next page, please. So my marketing strategy, I do plan on hosting home run derbies, tournaments, and fall play, as well as I'm going to have logoed clothing. Lee, be a shirt for you. And I need to be within walking distance to the Marine District, preferably directly in the Marine District. Next slide, please. Those are just key activities showing that I have put a lot of time and thought into what it takes to running a business. Next slide, please. So my key resources. I have a startup budget of $180,000, mostly being funded through Tricorp. I will need to get things like pitching machines, the hit tracks, the cameras and projectors, and my commercial kitchen equipment. I need to note that it is simply a convection oven, a freezer, and a fridge. I have my food safe and my coaching association certification through the NCCP. And my human resources, I'll be the manager. I need staff members, obviously, an accountant, and all of these will be hired within Rupert. And next slide, please. So my key partners will be Hit Tracks, the NCCP, Cane Island Slow Pitch, the school district, because I plan on bringing school programs through, including to the neighboring communities, and then partnering with Wheelhouse, Breakers Pub, and other small businesses to have a burger and a bat deal. Next slide, please. So my projected revenue for 2023 is $314,680, coming from 3 revenue streams, being the batting cage, the snack shack, and my pro shop. Now, I do need to note that my batting cage revenue is based on a projected occupancy of 31 to 34%. So I don't think I'm going to be busy all the time and full, because that's a little unrealistic. And that's still doing really well. Next slide, please. So now that I've explained my business concept, I'd like to tell you why I believe I'm a suitable candidate for the Waterfront Canfisco facility. And as you can see, I have a strong business concept. The next thing I will get into will be the survey that I did in October, proving that there is demand for an indoor batting facility. It's a positive contribution to recent developments within the area. There's location advantages from being in the Marine District. There's a collaboration of organizations that want to work together to build a multi-sports complex. It's consistent with the social benefits of Prince Rupert, the quality of life principle, and the placemaking vision, as well as I have letters of support for some local associations. Next slide, please. So I did a survey in October of 127 Prince Rupert residents during 1 week. And in that time, I found out that 67.77% of Prince Rupert plays on an organized sport, 43.2% of children play sports, and 57.65% of Prince Rupert plays on a slow pitch team. When asked if there is a baseball skill development opportunity necessary in Prince Rupert, 86.77% either agreed or strongly agreed. When asked if there's a need for indoor batting cage, 86.61% either strongly agreed or agreed. And when asked if they'd be interested in pizza by the slice, 76.86% agreed, or extremely interested or very interested, and that number would go up if it was in the Rushbrook location. Next slide, please. So this is just a reminder of the different proposed developments going on in the area. There's a 3rd Avenue East property sold to the city that's being developed. There's a $30 million waterfront development project. There's the Rupert Landing project and the Seal Cove improvement development. It's hard not to be excited about what's happening in Prince Rupert in the next couple of years. And I believe Swingsmith would be a huge attribution to this. Next slide, please. So the foot traffic, the location, it needs to be ideal for Rushbrook walkers. For cruise ship entertainment, if it's in walking distance to the cruise ship terminal, then I'll see people. Otherwise, I believe it would be completely non-existent for any other location. It's also an ideal location for families of sports fishermen visiting Prince Rupert in the summer. And it's a high traffic area to downtown and Cow Bay. Next slide, please. So working together, there has been a collaboration of other associations in town that want to build a multi-sports complex. And those are the Rugby Club, the Mountain Biking Club, Rock Climbing, MMA, Pickleball, Wrestling, as well as I was just told about the soccer today, and they've already talked to all these people. And gymnastics already calls the building home. Next slide, please. What we learn in play, we learn for life. The Prince Rupert social benefits, the health benefits of exercise. It's improved cognition in children between the ages of 6 to 13. It reduces your short-term risk of anxiety and depression. It makes you smarter and younger. It does keep you younger. And exercise helps control addictions. Next slide, please. So the quality of life principle for the 2030 vision, the exact definition of quality of life is an individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value systems in which they live and in relation to their goals, expectations, standards, and concerns. And I believe that Swingsmith Cages located at the proposed waterfront facility contributes to this quality of life principle. Growth and change in Prince Rupert must enhance community well-being, and a batting cage does exactly that. Next slide, please. So the 2030 placemaking vision. Swingsmith, located at the Ken Fisco waterfront facility, results in a cluster of recreational activities within that proposed marina district. It's a special dimension of placemaking in Prince Rupert. It's the full realization of the Parks and Recreation system. It's a fun outreach activity for neighboring residents. It will build pride, consumer loyalty, and support. And the Parks and Recreation, that's a hard word today. The Parks and Recreation setting within Prince Rupert must become a defining feature of living in the city. A reason to visit, a reason to settle here, a reason to stay for a lifetime. A family with a child who's doing quite well in baseball somewhere else might not move here for a job because there's no opportunities for them right now. Kids don't play a game until they're 12 years old. Next slide, please. So what am I asking for? Well, ideally, I am seeking a location with a minimum of 17 feet tall ceilings, and primarily, I would like a 3-year lease of 1,600 square feet of the waterfront facility at $650 a square foot. By the picture, you see the red door in the middle. I want from the red door over to like the closed side. So there's not even the bay doors that boats can access. And I've got letters of support from the Rugby Club and the Prince Rupert Gymnastics Association. Next slide. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. So do you have that loan now from Tricor?
I'll be getting it within the next couple months.
Okay.
I just finished my, out of Tricorp, it was the Indigenous ACE program. So that was life-changing, and that's what
Right.
kind of taught me everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hence why Corey is here as well.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, I coach my mentor.
And have you talked to Paul Vendatelli, our economic?
I have.
So what
and
was
he's
the?
been helpful.
Okay.
But he hasn't been able to give me any direct answers. I do know that it's on hold right now for some storage options. I don't really feel like storage is the best viable thing for the community. And I'm just kind of pleading my case on why I feel
Okay.
batting cage would be best for that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council?
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
I'm a fellow ACE grad as well. So
Oh, awesome. Sure. You like the jersey?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barry.
Very, very impressive presentation, and I've always maintained that we need more indoor athletic facilities. I used to take a minor hockey team down south and laser tag, and that was one thing that they just zoomed into all the time. So, and I agree with you, storage isn't the best use of that. If we could get a multi-use athletic
Yeah, I played
situation going on.
softball my whole life, and I had so many opportunities, and I would like to bring those opportunities up to Rupert eventually.
And I really like the idea of doing activities like make you younger and healthier.
Thanks.
I'll buy in right away. And you shut up, Kelly.
I'm not saying anything. Go ahead. Oh, was it? Or was it? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say a very good presentation, and obviously you've done your work, your homework, and yeah, we'll take the information, I guess, and go from here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask what?
Yeah, go ahead, Gurinder.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Very exciting. I just wanting to know, if you have any fee structure for the participants, you have any rates for students, or many people have financial challenges. So you have anything about that?
Well, I would be bringing in school programs, so that'll be like during the day, and that gives them the opportunity to come experience it. We do the same thing at gymnastics. I coach gymnastics as well, and I've noticed that it makes a really big difference for them. Eventually, yeah, absolutely, I would bring in neighboring communities, but not right off the bat.
Councilor Eddie?
Just thanks for the presentation. It looks like a lot of fun. And the notion of a sort of a multi-sports indoor facility is, I think that's the first time I've seen that put together conceptually in quite that way. It's certainly worth thinking about.
Thank you. I have the letters of support with me if anyone would like to read them afterwards as well.
Okay, you can give that to Ms. Miller, and I think your case has been made, and I think we'll be having a chat with staff, and when your loans and things like that come together, I think there's a chance for some more conversation for sure. So
Beautiful.
it would be, I think, a great thing for the community. There's no doubt about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time,
Of course.
and I'm looking forward to getting to Jersey at some point.
Just a quick question. We didn't get to answer any questions after Mr. Standring was here, but looking at the outlay of his yard and that, if he can't put up a fence or something like that, is there a compromise for something like that?
I think that's just a matter for staff to have to look into that after today. We know what the issue is now, and
It would be something that would be helpful if to the situation, I think.
thanks, Counselor. Okay, next we have Paul Legase from the Poverty Law Advocate Society and Trouble.
I know where I stand.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm Paul Legase. I'm the coordinator and legal advocate for the Prince Rupert Unemployed Action Center, and this is...
Hi, I'm Arnie Nagy. I'm the Aboriginal advocate at the Prince Rupert Unemployed Action Center. First off, before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that we are working and living as guests on the unceded traditional territories of the nine allied tribes of Metlakatla and Lakwalams. A very quick brief before Paul starts is the Prince Rupert Unemployed Action Center, on average per year, deals with about 1,400 clients between Paul and I. We average about 700 clients each. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but it averages out to about 1,400. The main issue that we deal with is housing and housing security. And a lot of that housing security is through income security. So we do what we can to secure income resources for a lot of our clients. As advocates, we realize the importance of the housing needs in this community. And from the past little while, I think council members have seen us getting up there and speaking about the need for housing. I know what happens when I get a mic in front of me. You know what happens when I get a mic in front of me. So I'm going to pass this mic over to Paul, and then he'll go through the issues that we discussed on the bylaws.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Yeah.
I just want to speak in regard specifically to the regulations and licensings of residential accommodations here.
Is
in
this for
Prince
the
Rupert.
upcoming renoviction
Yeah.
bylaw? Okay.
Yeah. The renoviction bylaw, if
Yeah.
you like, is probably the simple way to put it. I just wanted to point out a couple things and just offer some insight I believe we have on it. First, I really congratulate the city for looking at this. It's a very serious issue, and it's great that this is even put forth, and it's very good initiative. So I'd like to acknowledge that. The only question, I had one main thing, and it was around the minimum standards of maintenance part, where whether it says the exemption would go under the regulation and license of rental units, and the exemption would be if it is not, if it is a single detached dwelling unit, it would be exempt from this license. And so I'm here to challenge that thought on why that might be. I think there's better interests here. I also note that the minimum maintenance standards section does not exempt it. So, and that's fine, but if that ever changed, because it seems sections 3 and 4 kind of go together. So there could be an exemption here. So my argument is really not so that there isn't exemption on both those parts. And so you haven't defined a single detached dwelling unit means a single family dwelling or two-family dwelling as defined in the City of Prince Rupert zoning bylaw. So, so basically, a single detached unit could have 2 or 3 apartments in it. There's quite a lot of these that fit this category here in Prince Rupert. From our experience, and we deal with all the tenancy issues, I'm making a huge generalization here, but the larger landlords are pretty cooperative, we find, with things. There's challenges, there's dialogues, and sometimes, you know, we have to get orders for things. But the most problems I tend to see is in these single detached dwelling units where there's 2 or 3 units in there. There's various reasons why this is the case. Well, for example, a very public case, I'm not here to identify things, but the Angus Apartments is we're all well aware, and it's publicly on Administrative Penalties website. And that particular landlord owns houses that is rented out to folks in this town as well that are under the same, obviously maybe not the same severity as Angus, but it's the same situation. So I simply point that out. Yeah, the bigger landlords tend to eventually deal with these things. I mean, why is this happening in these units? There's a lot of property flipping going on right now, and some of these units, investors are not sinking money in, they're waiting until the market value goes up. That's where some of the challenge comes in, where there's hearings. Again, I don't want to generalize anybody here, but that's where you see a lot of the absentee out-of-town investors that are not sinking some money into these units. I realize this could be a concern. So a part compromise could potentially be if the owner lives in one of these units as their permanent primary residence, not a manager, but the owner, well, then I think in these cases, you know, they're going to take care of their own properties because they're living there. So I would like to, you know, consider, you know, the single detached dwelling units be included in the license, perhaps with the exemption of if the owner is in one of those units. And I just, as a primary resident, not it's their second house or third house or whatever. The other thing I would note, in this case happened last year. There was a situation where in one single dwelling unit there was 12 migrant workers living in that house, and the rents were $1,600 a room, and that's a single room, and $1,100 for a shared room. And there was some questions around this. I'm not saying that's a typical case, but it could. These are where some of these problems may turn up in the future, especially if the housing crunch continues. It would allow to deal with situations such as this if there's a standards of maintenance or a license issue. I realize it's not about, you're not going to be monitoring the prices of places, but this is where some of these problems occur. So I just want to point that out and ask council to seriously consider that. I had two other, one really simple statement on, there's some thoughts on section 4. Sorry. No, I apologize. Sorry, building renovations. So on section 44, on restrictions of evictions, it talks about restricting landlords to issue a 4-month notice. I just simply point out those laws did change on January 1st, 2021. So a landlord can't actually issue those notices now. They have to make requests direct to the residential tenancy branch. I just simply point that
Okay.
out. That's a simple thing. And then the other question, and this is sort of, I think, in favor of landlords a little bit. I do support landlords as, you know. One of the things is if the renovation is to occur, that, I really applaud the idea that they could come back into the units at the same price. One of the things in paragraph 44A2 states that the landlord is also responsible to provide temporary accommodation for folks in this situation. I mean, it sounds nice, and I'm certainly for tenants. However, I'm not sure that would be reasonable for the average mom and pop landlord to do. You know, if you own another house and you got to do the work on it, and they're going to put you in at the cost. Well, you know, work in Prince Rupert, it takes, they say 3 weeks, and it's 4 months. I just don't think the average person has the ability to put somebody up for 3 or 4 months. Or, you know, even if it's a complex of 10, where are you going to put 10 families? Again, I very much support tenants, but I could see that being slightly burdensome to landlords. Or the other way around it, maybe you could exempt the single dwelling units from that, where the landlord lives in it, and use some of the language with that.
Yeah.
That's really my thoughts on it. Thank you for listening.
No, that's very insightful, Paul. Reminds me of the lunch we went to when we first discussed this a couple of years ago, actually. So I really appreciate you helping put feedback onto that, and it's based on real world experience. And you know, we thank both of you guys for what you do for this community. I know how hard it is, the work you do, so, and the volume in which you have to do it, and the time you have as well. So thank you for helping us try to get this right. So.
And that's the last time you'll ever hear me keep a speech out of my 2 minutes. Eh?
Well, I'm here till the end of October, so we'll see. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, sorry, questions, sorry.
Actually, this is to Mr. Buchan. So I just want to clarify this, that the single-family dwelling, if it's a house with a suite, is that not considered like that's 2 units? So that would be under this.
Through the mayor, this bylaw has some application to single-family dwellings. The bylaw does not call for licensing the rentals of single-family dwellings or suites within. And the reason for that is imposing a licensing and system on existing stock, you may actually end up losing some of that existing stock because some owners may not want to go through that process. And you know, there's different reasons for that, but that's one of the cautions with having a licensing program, is you actually may lose rental stock. It also would be a significant administrative burden. Now we can do that, absolutely. We staff up to do that. The question is it actually going to be helping with the rental stock? The bylaw does apply to single-family dwellings in the context of property maintenance standards. So Part 4 applies, Part 5 applies, but it explicitly excludes single-family dwellings from being licensed for rentals.
Thank you.
If we're not licensing them, and I can see the good reasons for that, how would we know they exist? That's the problem, because right now so many people are afraid to complain about their living conditions in this town that they're willing to put up with stuff that you and I wouldn't even think of living in. So that's the question I have around this whole situation, whereas, you know, you have people now that are buying a house with the idea of flipping it, and then having two tenants in there, and they're afraid to say anything because it's the only place they can find to live. So, you know, that's where, you know, I appreciate the fact that it's gonna be under the maintenance bylaw, and I love this. I think it's a great piece of legislation, and I'm happy we're going with it. And I would, if I have to, I'm gonna vote to support it even with the exemption, even though I don't like the exemption. It's just one of those things, but, my concern is the loophole that's gonna be there where these people aren't gonna say anything and living these conditions. I've seen some of them with black mold and things like this, and they're living there in their unhealthy conditions. And the average person wouldn't live in that place.
And that's occurring right now, but it's also occurring with the cost of housing in this community. You have 3 or 4 families living in housing that's designed for a 1-family unit. And they're not saying anything because they are afraid of losing housing and they'll be able to. See? I'm trying to stay away from the mic. But that is the problem with the cost of housing here in Prince Rupert. We're seeing single-family units having to have 3 or 4 separate families living in there because that's the only way that they could have housing on over their heads. And the fact that some of this housing here is not in the best shape, they are afraid to say anything at the fear of losing that housing. You know, it's pretty sad, just very quickly, that a person in this community renting a 1-bedroom apartment is paying more in rent than what I am paying for my 5-bedroom house mortgage. And when they try to get a house, they're told, no, you can't afford it, so go back and pay your $1,500 a month's rent instead of your $1,000 a month mortgage. That's another fundamental question that's really becoming a serious issue in this town. Because the only way that a young person's going to get a house in this town is if us old buggers die off and then leave it to them in a will. That's the only way that it's coming down to, unless you win the lottery or something along those lines. I mean, we're in a real crunch here, and it's getting worse every week. And I think this is a very good step to addressing it.
That's why we want to get this right, and we're glad to be working with you guys on this. We're going to discuss this tonight in the regular meeting, but we appreciate the suggestions, and thanks for helping us get to a point where, you know, we want to make sure we're taking real action, and I think this is one of those steps, and of course doing other things as well. But I just want to thank you guys for your time, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, you guys have a great night. Okay, is there anyone else from the public that'd like to come say anything to council on any other topic of their choice? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene our regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Scout Morvan. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Feel free to head on home if you'd like. You could stay for the regular meeting. I highly doubt that you want to, but just give you guys permission to go have some dinner. I guess, yeah, it's 8 o'clock already. Holy. Okay, we'll just allow a moment here to folks to shuffle. I don't mind.
I wonder if that pitching machine will go slow enough that you and I can see the ball coming.
Dangerous even without a mic.
That's funny.
Hey, I included myself.
That's always the best way to do it. Veronica, do you want him to speak with your presentation tonight? But it'd be, I think, not a bad thing if he wants to. Okay. How's it going? Thanks for coming tonight. Okay. Let's continue on with our business. Okay, item 2, recommendation the agenda for the regular council meeting on February 28th, 2022 be adopted with the addition of item 4I, a resolution from the closed meeting. Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation of the minutes of the special council meeting on February 7th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 7th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first we have a report from planning regarding DBP 2111 for 885 Borden Street.
I think that this is simply there for council's approval of consideration, for approval or denial now.
Okay, so recommendation that council proceeds with the consideration for development variance permit application DVP 2111 to approve the application. Seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 4B, recommendation from planning, a report from planning regarding DVP 2202 for 945 Hayes Cove Avenue. Same deal. Move to approve by Councillor Niche that for DVP 2202. Seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, a report from planning for DVP 2204, the CVC building. Recommendation that council proceed with the statutory notification process for development variance. You want to say something? Come on forward. Why don't you present this one to us? How about that? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You want to pull the mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Just right up.
Okay to remove the
You can
mic?
remove the glass. Yep, absolutely.
Definitely speak clear like this. So this is for the development variance permit for 4 window signs located at property 2222 to 216 3rd Avenue West. This is the CVC unit located there that's renting. The variance is for the City of Prince Rupert zoning bylaw section 10.17 regarding the permitting of window signs. So that that bylaw allows window signs to cover up to 30% of each retail display window. And the variances are requesting a larger percentage coverage. The first window would be covered 100% and feature CVC Daybreak North, host Carolina DeRick. And then the remaining 3 windows would have a frosted gray CVC logo at the bottom and would cover approximately 47% of each window. There are no negative impacts to the surrounding areas that were identified, and we recommend that it goes to public notification.
Okay. Anyone want to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor 80. Any questions?
I think it's it's good. What I saw, I like. I think it's great. The fact that you're looking into a working studio and covering the windows up, I think is a great idea. But while we're on this, is plywood covering windows, covering 100% of the window? You know, we've got businesses up and down 3rd Avenue that are plywooded up. Yeah, is it an infraction of this bylaw?
I believe so.
That's not a permitted structure.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have another report, DBP 2114 for 1429 Overlook. Welcome.
Thank you. So an application was received for development variance permit for the property located at 1429 Overlook Street. And so the application involves a request for variance of section 5.23C of the zoning bylaw to build a dwelling unit with a floor area of 316.33 square meters. The maximum floor area for a dwelling unit in an R2 zone is 700 square meters, or an area equal to but not exceeding the lot area, whichever is less. So the lot area here is 300.45 square meters, and the applicant is requesting a variance of 15.88 square meters above the maximum floor area. The application also involves a request for a variance of section 5.24 of the zoning bylaw to have a lot coverage of 63% of the site. And so the maximum lot coverage in an R2 zone is 50% of the site, so this is 13% above the maximum lot coverage. The application involves a further request for variance of section 5.26B of the zoning bylaw to have a 0 meter setback from the rear property line. So the required setback from the rear property line in R2 zone is 3 meters, and so this is a 3 meter variance. The proposed variances for floor area, lot coverage, and the setback from the rear property line are requested by the applicant so that they can construct a residence with 2 decks. And there are no known negative impacts of the proposed variances on the surrounding neighborhood, and the public will have an opportunity to provide feedback during the public consultation period.
Okay, any questions? Good.
Thanks very much for your presentation. This is just a procedural question. I have no objection of going to the public notification process to get feedback from neighboring properties. Because they're applying for floor area, lot coverage, and setback variance, if there is opposition to one or more of those variances, do we have the ability as council to approve or deny portions of those variances? Am I articulating that well enough?
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Okay.
It may precipitate a redesign, and they may have to come back, but yes, you can definitely approve some or part or none.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
Not so much a question, just a little bit more context to it, because, well, I'm working on the same road and I've seen what they're doing, and those lots are really small on Overlook, and so I think that's why he's asking for the extra size, just to build a normal size house, and there's horrible parking on that street. Sometimes I have to park like 4 or 5 houses away from where I'm working and so I think the idea is that they want to move it further to the back, so there's actually off-street parking, because the off-street parking on the street's pretty horrible. So, I mean, the only negativity I could see would be possibly from a neighbor if they felt their view was restricted, but we'll let everyone have their piece on that one, but just to give you a little bit more context on it.
Anything else? Anyone want to move the recommendation then? Moved by Councillor 80, second by Councillor Morrow. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And you're the next one as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the application was received for a development variance permit for the property located at 1039 Hayes Cove Avenue. So this application involves a request for a variance of section 5.26A of the zoning bylaw to have a 0.508 meter setback from the front property line in order to accommodate a proposed covered deck and stairway. The required setback from the front property line in an R2 zone is 3.6 meters, and so this is a variance of 3.092 meters. The application also involves a request for a variance of section 5.26 C of the zoning bylaw to have a 0.508 meter setback from the side property line in order to accommodate a sunroom that was present when the property was purchased. So the required setback from the side property line in an R2 zone is 1.2 meters, and so this is a variance of 0.692 meters. And the application involves a further request for a variance of section 5.26C of the zoning bylaw to have a 0.3048 meter setback from the side property line in order to accommodate a shed that was present when the property was purchased. The required setback is 1.2 meters, and this is variance of 0.8952 meters. And there are no known negative impacts of the proposed variances on the surrounding neighborhood, and the public will have the opportunity to provide feedback during the consultation period.
Great. Any comments? Okay, any movers for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Anish, second by Councillor Kanyam. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the cost and commissioning consultants award for the RCMP detachment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report seeks to award 2 RFPs that were undertaken to make up part of the specialized members of the project team for the RCMP detachment project. A cost consultant is utilized to provide a more refined estimate of what a project should cost, which is then used as a reference point for project construction bids and validation at construction milestones. A commissioning consultant will lead the commissioning process for all construction divisions, as well as assist with testing and oversee the implementation of the building systems used. The evaluation team evaluated all proposals and recommended awarding the cost consulting to BTY Group and the commissioning consultant to CES Engineering Limited for the purposes of the RCMP detachment project. Thank you.
Okay, it's a recommendation that Mayor and Council award the cost consulting for the RCMP detachment to BTY Group, and that Mayor and Council award the commissioning consulting for the RCMP detachment department to CES Engineering. Moved by Councillor Ady, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next we have a report from our Manager of Communications regarding the consideration of a final brand package for the City of Prince Rupert. A long time coming.
All right, thank you to Mayor and Council. We're just going to direct you to Will Creative, who is here on Zoom to present our brand strategy and guidelines to us. I'd also like to let you know that Russell Mather is in the audience, who worked very closely with Will Creative on developing the brand guidelines and the logo, and we're very, very grateful for his participation. So I'm going to hand it over now to Will Creative and their team, and thank you for being patient with us. Sitting there on Zoom.
No problem. Thanks, Veronica. And hi, everyone. I can't see anyone, but I'm assuming I'm just picturing everyone's faces right now. And we just wanted to say that, unfortunately, Bree, who's the lead designer working on this project with Russell, worked really closely with Russell throughout this whole project, unfortunately came down with COVID. She got it right near the end, so she was unable to join us, but luckily Nick is stepping in and will be walking us through the design part.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, Nick.
Sounds good.
And then you can take over.
Okay, it's going to be a tough, we're just messaging, so it's going to be a tough act to follow the Swing Smith pitch, but we'll do our best. So yeah, we're going to walk you through what will feel like a lot of content in a short amount of time, but we really want to have the chance to look at it all together. And I think, you know, we're just quite excited to see this as well. You know, feels like a very important finish line. So Nick, if you want to go to the next slide, please.
Oh, is it not moved on?
No, it's not.
Certainly hard.
That
How about
did,
that?
moved.
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, we're on page 2 now. So as you can tell by this page, what we'll be walking you through is just a brief overview of the process we took to get here, the overarching goal that this project was aiming to achieve, and then Nick's going to walk you through the brand, which, if you go to the next slide, Nick, I think is calling out.
It's not moving on. Sorry, Nick. I don't know why.
Oh.
Let me unshare.
Can you go full screen? It wasn't on full screen.
It was, yeah, it is on my side.
Ah.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move you guys over here. And then I'm going to share my screen.
Perfect. And all I was going to say here was that I think the bit that will be the most exciting for everyone will be to look at the brand. So I'll be quick on the upfront slides here. But it was important to us, if you go to the next slide, just to remind ourselves of the process that we took to get here. And so from the beginning, the big discovery process that included in-depth interviews, lots of desk research, everything from diving into social media threads and community pages to tourism communications, historic collateral, which all became input into our definition stage. And that's where we were able to join the team for a full day brand definition workshop that had an 8-person mix of city leadership and staff, long-term and newer residents, local business owner, community development leader, and the Aboriginal Truth and Reconciliation Commission Administrator for School District 52. And the output of all of that was a brand strategy, which I'll read through for you in a moment. And that became the brief and the input to the design that grew from there. And it's been, as someone who worked on the strategy, it's been really amazing to see how it's come to life visually and in tone and in so much color. And through the collaboration with Russell, I think the output is something that we're all really excited to share today. So the goal for this project was to create a progressive and inspiring city brand. So something that really was representative of Rupert today, while having, a foot in all of the strengths and the things that bring us pride from the past. And we wanted to also ensure that we're celebrating the diverse cultural backgrounds and perspective of Prince Rupert, which we heard a lot within that discovery and definition phase. So what you'll see is a fresh blend of Indigenous art, contemporary design, and rainbow symbolism that culminates in identity that should feel unexpected, future forward, and uniquely Rupert. From the brand side of things, our starting place was defining what our strategy was. And for that, it's really about what is the reason for being for the city of Prince Rupert? What is the thing that we promise as an overarching promise to every member of our community and other communities that might engage with us? And so the brand strategy is a springboard for how we talk and think and look and act. And not only was it the brief for our brand identity that Nick's going to walk you through, but it's also should be a guide for our decisions as a whole and ensure that the reputation that we're trying to build for the city is something that is consistent and cohesive. So those qualities that came out of the process are really what's listed here. And so we exist as City of Prince Rupert to reveal the strength within. And in order to do that, we promise to embolden the open, the enterprising, and the brave. And it was fun to hear even examples of that enterprising and brave in some of the presentation tonight. In terms of our spirit, that kind of golden thread through everything that we do, we heard about the untamed beauty, which of course is the untamed beauty of place, but also the untamed beauty of our community and the way in which we interact and engage with one another. And ultimately, we want to live up to a reputation for being empowering and resourceful, inclusive and resilient. So all of this then fed into Nick's team, and he's going to walk you through the output.
Thanks, Nick. So we obviously use this brand platform to inspire every thing that we then went on to develop, which was, as you saw in one of those earlier slides, the mood board, the logo, color palette, etc. It's very important, though, to remember that just the commitment to collaboration that we all as a team, so our team and the community team and the project team that was steering this, collaboration was absolutely imperative to really the reflection of your community, digging deep, getting real feedback and real input from people that matter. And so we obviously engaged in a very deep way with Russell, collaborated on a number of the visual directions and the early input and the later refinements. All was done hand in hand with our team, Russell, and of course the project team at the city. So we obviously are looking to create a new brand that refreshes where you currently are. And the by rail and ship with net and pick, we win our wealth. On reflection feels a little, let's just say it doesn't quite fit where you are, or certainly where we're going. So the logo needed to embody a story that's, authentic and truthful. And as Nicola and I have both mentioned, this kind of collaboration between the diverse communities and the cultures within Rupert. So one of the sources of inspiration was the rainbow, obviously the City of Rainbows, Yeah, that led us to inspire the kind of the icon component of the logo. As you can see running over the top, there's a very healthy amount of indigenous inspiration within the typography that we've really worked very hard to strike the balance on. So it's, you know, what we've recognized early on is, you know, Rupert is really a harmony of a lot of different cultures coming together. And so to find an appropriate way of reflecting, you know, those different stories in one mark has been certainly our goal. It's been a challenge because, you know, I don't think I've ever seen this done before. But I think with Russell's help and obviously the advice of the project team, we've reached something that really does strike that balance well. So we have a logo and a logo system, and you know, any logo system needs to have a lot of different kind of variations to I guess function well as a brand identity within all the diverse applications that it will have to appear on. And we have some alternate colors here that you can see. We've also got marks that don't rely on that rainbow component, but the typography still carries an enormous amount of personality and story just within the letter forms themselves. There's a very healthy influence from Formline just in some of the shapes of the characters, which we're really happy with. So also expanding that identity platform into things like social avatars, where these will ultimately be used at a very small scale, so need to be a little bit more simplified. And logo is one part of a brand identity. There are other dimensions and tools within our toolkit, and I'll take you through them kind of one at a time. Color is one of them, where again, we very much were inspired by the color that we see in your current city brand, but also took a healthy dose of inspiration from the Coast Simpson colors and some of the artifacts we've found along our journey. So yeah, as far as the color palette is concerned, very, I would say, strong leaning on the red, teal, and yellow amongst the brand identity that I'll walk you through later. And there are some neutrals there you'll see on the left-hand side. Typography, and we've tried to continue that harmony of cultures and that fusion that we worked hard to depict in the logo type and the visual identity of the logo itself, the symbol. But here we've selected a typeface that also has that kind of fusion between something that feels hard to place. There's a cultural melting pot that's reflected in it, and in support of that, a secondary typeface that's very very functional. It has a very peculiar name, Manrope. Graphic devices are also another tool in our toolkit. The rainbow tool device is going to be something that I'm sure we'll see a lot, and you'll see it come to life later in this presentation. And I'm flying through a little bit of a pace just because I want to get to the applications where all of these things start to work in concert with each other on some kind of test applications, and you'll see how it all comes to play. So the rainbow device, you can already see how it may get used as a pure graphic component on the left-hand side or integrated into photography on the right. You're also starting to see and feel how color can play a role in really reflecting the rainbow theme across, you know, our applications and our brand identity. And then we have a support depiction of that rainbow with a little bit more detail and taking a healthy inspiration from some of the ovoids in Formline. And here another iteration of that rainbow. So I touched on Formline, and what we've done also in building this identity is worked very closely with Russell to pack in within this brand identity some holding shapes, some graphic shapes that are really useful for an innovative and progressive visual identity where we're able to almost kind of use shapes on brochures and social posts and websites and, you know, swag items, but they already feel like they're the Rupert brand. And again, you'll see some of these shapes in use across the next few pages, where even just these holding shapes and the colors and some of the photography, you start to feel the Rupert spirit coming to life. And then the second graphic device that we've been, the third graphic device that we've introduced, again, we find it really, really useful to I guess, immediately take ownership of almost any imagery or any kind of graphic space, is these frames. And you can start to see how they can get used here to frame some statements, again, inspired by the brand strategy. But just the shape alone starts to have a kind of a presence to it, and it says Rupert, says the Rupert brand identity without actually having to say Prince Rupert. And I think that for a diverse and eclectic function that the city brand is going to have to perform, I think we need a lot of variety, and we need that kind of depth and breadth in the way it comes to life. Photographic stories, again, should feel familiar. They should kind of capture the richness of the people and the lives that we include in our community, and touch on the arts and the entrepreneurship that, again, Nicola hinted at, that was reflected in the strategy. Oops. And then we obviously have a sense of place. And again, you know, these are found images really capturing some of the kind of tonal qualities that we see as part of our visual identity. And obviously some of them featuring some of the local heroes like Hammy. Iconography will inevitably be part of a visual identity, you know, very useful on some of the digital assets like the website and in some brochureware. And the icon style needs to kind of carry the same aesthetic through. So some of the line shapes and details feel like it's come and born from the same inspiration as the identity and the rest of the look and feel. And then these, the next few pages are really, you know, they're called notionals. We call them notional applications. They're really like road tests of all of those elements of the brand identity working in concert with each other on a handful of fictional applications. And here we've got, you know, a design for a piece of stationery. It may not be the end design, or the same with the business cards, but you can start to feel just by seeing it on a real life application mock-up, you start to imagine it a little bit more coming to life in real life. And then again, things like swag items, I think there'll be a great kind of opportunity to wear the Rupert brand with pride. On, you know, a sweatshirt like we see on the left-hand side, but also on the right-hand side, a highly functional social post that talks about a bear in the area, but even the visual kind of the picture aspect of that social post doesn't say Prince Rupert anywhere, but it obviously embodies all of the elements that we've, you know, I've just walked you through: typography, the rainbow, the form line inspired graphic shapes, and obviously photographic style. Here are a few hints again at the types of things that you could see being part of our social posts. Again, the visual language provides a lot of flexibility and diversity in the way it can come to life. So it will feel diverse and as rich as the community, and also won't get stale or boring. And again, you know, how might the mobile website start to look and feel? Again, very distinctive in its use of color, shape, typography, without really having to do very much. It immediately feels very ownable, and it feels very Prince Rupert to us, and all of the team that collaborated to build it. And then we've got these, again, fictional posters, and we've got one for the next council meeting. Actually, I should have changed the date, so it was today, but we didn't pay that much amount of detail because they are fictional. But yeah, you can already start to feel how the visual identity and all these different layers start to play a role in creating a diverse, innovative, but very authentically Rupert look and feel. So that's kind of where we are. Here again, a few more applications, just seeing it in use. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey getting to where we are today. And I'm very, very sad that Bree couldn't make it. She's more sick than many of us are getting with COVID these days, but I'm sure she'll bounce back. But she talks so highly of the collaboration with Russell. It was everything that I think she and all of us wanted out of it. It was very, very hand in hand and walking in lockstep together to co-create this new City of Prince Rupert brand identity. So I'm going to leave it there. Why don't I just go back to a previous page? How about something like this? And maybe Veronica, I don't know how you want to field any comments or questions, but we're happy to provide answers if you would like.
Sure, that's great. Maybe I will. Russell, is there anything that you wanted to say, not to put you on the spot? Yeah, I would. Thank you.
This was a truly unique process for myself too, because with the groups involved, stakeholders, it was very meaningful. We couldn't have the art forms that you've seen on the screen without that cultural content. So the art's the identity, the cultural content is the heritage part of it. So when we set off in this canoe together, I talked about we're going to walk together as one. Hegulian. Right, Uncle Barry? So that means we walk shoulder to shoulder. I'm not walking in front of them, or they're not walking in front of me. And we're going to try to deliver this message and convey everything that came in front of us. And should we get that right, then we're going to hit something called Site Kolam Goat. And I wish my Metakatla friends were still here because they use that term a lot. That means when you get something right, your hearts and your feelings are the same. They beat as one. So for me, this was such a touching piece to be part of, and I sure wish Bree was here. I wish her well, and I can't say enough of the magic she can do, and something that takes me half a day she can do in like 3 seconds. It's like mind blasting. And the ladies here, thank you very much. You know, it was an opportunity, and I'm glad I was recommended to it. And I don't think I'd change anything other than it's a nice milestone through the pandemic. We worked through it. So it was very refreshing. Just our internet services in Lac Lam's absolutely are horrible. When the weather gets bad, that's why I kept cutting out of your Zoom sessions. So maybe that's something I'd change. Oh, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Russell.
Yeah, thank you, Russell.
I appreciate that. So this process initially started because we all met during the 2030 vision process, and a lot of what was recommended were physical upgrades, but there was also the recommendation for us to have a bit more of a coherent aesthetic moving forward, because that's not something that we have with the current corporate crest. So now we can really see that there are coherent visual elements that we can use in our day-to-day work, not only in print, but also in, things that we want to install. Tourism Prince Rupert is currently working on a wayfinding project for signage, and it's influenced by our brand. So this is something that the community can really see come to light. And yeah, so my recommendation then is for council to consider the logo and attached brand guidelines that were presented by Will Creative. And thank you again to Will Creative and Russell for your work on this.
Before we do that, is there any questions from council and comments? Good.
Sure. I suppose I come into it as somebody whose personal background would have found something like this a bit superficial, and I'm now finding myself feeling that much less. I'm not really a businessman by nature, so I don't really sort of naturally incline to the kinds of things that need to happen around branding and logo and advertising. But here we are, and just looking through that presentation and also sort of evolving my thinking through the various sessions we've had in the development of this, I can really see how this is a much more accurate representation of our culture in the community, the cultural diversity that we have here. I can see how strong it is in terms of how versatile its applications are, beyond just a logo on a letterhead. It's modern in its conceptual design, and I think it makes me feel like we're looking forward rather than looking back, and I think that's where we need to be. We need to be looking forward. I think we're in many other ways we're positioning ourselves that way, and I think this reflects that. And so I'm really impressed by it. Even though I don't come to that naturally, I find myself there now. And I guess a backhanded way of saying that would be to ask everybody to try to imagine all of those applications and all of those different ways of representing ourselves using the old logo. And I think that would be a mess. So this really does, I think, serve a useful purpose in terms of launching us into the future. So I'm very impressed by it.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
No, at first I was kind of skeptical, but in the end I love it. Like being a person that kind of identifies with old things. I look at this and I think it's exciting. I think it's refreshing. And as Russell says, it's a canoe trip that a lot of people went on, and I think they all paddled well together and came up with something that everyone can be very proud of. It's simplistic, but at the same time gets a message across, which I really like. I can't wait to have a jacket with it on.
Councillor Nish.
Yeah, I think over time it's kind of grown on me. At first, I wasn't looking at it from a perspective of all the different aspects where it will be used, and when you see it from in all the different applications, I think that's where it's more grown on me. I definitely felt that we were in need of an update. I mean, the logo was old and was not really fitting to who we are now, and I think that all the different aspects of this now, how it can be used, and whether it's a picture frame or a simple logo, it's not overwhelming like the old logo. And the old logo, as Councillor Adey said, you can't really use that old logo in many different aspects, and whereas this you can. So good job, and thanks for everything.
Councillor Scott Marvin.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the team and thank Russell for his submissions, and also appreciate our team down south for having a co-creative process and walking alongside one another. I think that's extremely important and very representative of our region, that we kind of capture that identity as well. No, and again, I think there's a lot of multi-uses for this and different uses of brandings, and definitely in favor. So I just want to thank the team and thank Russell again, and thank you for coming tonight.
Councillor Moreau.
Got 14 pages over there.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much, Russell, for all your contributions to this project. And one thing you just said there actually completely helped me change the whole frame of reference I had for this. You said art is identity.
Mm-hmm.
And to what Councillor Adie just said, this is such a much more accurate reflection of our community than that old corporate seal from the turn of the century. It's like a new well, the City of Rainbows has been around since as a concept since 1982, but we're really making a brand new identity out of it, and the potent symbolism of that is art is identity, and that's how we want to, I think, reinforce the metaphor of inclusion and multicultural diversity. And I can't thank you enough for your contributions to this project, because it's so meaningful to me personally. I've kind of been unofficially branded the Rainbow Guy as part of this whole rebranding process, because I haven't been ashamed to lean into the metaphor of what City of Rainbows really means. And I want to preemptively confront, I think, what would be a couple of the main criticisms from people on the street. One of which is there's this big debate of why would we want a brand focused on the rain? All we're doing is drawing attention to the rain. And to me, I have to say back, we are the rainiest and cloudiest city in Canada. How are we ever going to hide that from someone from the outside? We need to lean into that brand. And if Vancouver and Seattle and London have the rain city reputations in the world, we get twice as much as them every year. So to me, we have to lean into that. We have to focus on what comes after the rain, which is the rainbow. It's the calm after the storm. It's the symbol of resilience. It's the symbol of inclusivity, multicultural diversity. It's such a great symbol for being at the end of the line. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We're at the end of Highway 16. We're at the end of the rail. In some cultures, the rainbow is a metaphor for portals to other worlds, and we are that portal to Haida Gwaii, to Vancouver Island, to the Asia Pacific. I could go on in a million different directions. I suppose the other criticism I want to confront in advance is I know there's some people that will look from the outside who will say, why would we want to spend money on this process when we could spend it on any number of priorities? Could be parks or roads or sewers or anything you want to name. And I want to confront that criticism head on, because, to Councillor Adie's point again about trying to use the corporate seal from 1910 and other applications, you got to think about the fact that how much the medium and the media has changed from 1910. And the purpose and use of a corporate seal was literally a wax seal to seal documents or to put on a flag. And now we're dealing with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and websites and mobile messaging and countless other mediums. Graphic design has come an incredible long way, even just in the last 5 years. This is well worth our money. Best practices to update a brand every 7 to 10 years. We haven't spent a cent on rebranding in Prince Rupert since 1910, and it shows. The other point I would make is if you want a comparison of other communities that did not decide to put significant resources to try to get it right the first time, you end up spending a little bit of money, like the City of Vancouver, if anyone remembers that debacle from 2018, spending a small amount of money and getting a typeface that ended up getting absolutely roasted in the court of public opinion, and they had to go right back to the drawing board because they didn't do a thorough consultation or work with locals in a meaningful way to get something done. So the other point I would make, I personally, I'll ask it as a question. What value do we place as a community on being inclusive? Is there a dollar value that we can put on that figure? And when we look at that coat of arms, it's a reflection of a very specific time, a very specific place, a very specific colonial and cultural connotation. So it's so far past its best before date. It's well past time that we move beyond that. So for all those reasons, Russell, again, I can't thank you enough. Will Creative, all of your guys' work as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this roll out and to see how it starts to reinforce, I think, a new identity, an exciting new decade for Prince Rupert.
I'm not sure I can add any more than what Councillor Moreau has said, actually, because everything has been said. But I just want to say thank you to the Will team and to you, Russell. And I remember the first workshop on this because I'll never forget it. It was a Thursday because I had to cancel a flight on Friday that I was going to go to a meeting on because the pandemic had just started, and within that weekend everything was shut down. So we got this workshop done right before the pandemic. And if we hadn't done that, I don't think we would have come up with this, because I still remember the conversation was, how do we create a brand that bridges both the heritage of Prince Rupert that people traditionally associate it to and the actual 10,000 years worth of history that are here. And I remember the conversation going, well, that could be sensitive. That could be, we got to be careful. And I remember everyone going, no, we're going to be the first to try to actually acknowledge and work towards that. And honestly, what's come out of this is something I think is absolutely, this is probably one of the most beautiful things I've seen in terms of a brand. And I think, Russell, you working with this team, the Will folks, and working together, and I've seen that process evolve and how you've refined it to this really like colorful, meaningful. It feels like everyone's involved with it. It doesn't feel like it doesn't include anyone else. I just think it's something very special, and it's such a great legacy for this community, because regardless of the ebbs and flows of the economy here, which is usually what logos are based on, by net and ship and our picks and our fishing nets and all things like that, this is a timeless brand, I think, that can last beyond whatever happens to Prince Rupert, and really is more about the people here than it is about the economy and all the things that are happening here. So I think it's really just kind of hit the mark. I really love the line art and the font and just how it kind of, you can put it together in so many different ways, different applications. I think this is just such a great thing to really represent this Rupert 2030 vision that we're trying to undertake, and as the town develops and more physical structures get built in town and this brand can be incorporated, I think it's really going to, over time, the whole town will come to life as this kind of a good underpinning to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to the tourism Prince Rupert signages and the wayfinding, and there's so many applications that this will be put to use for. So thank you very much for your guidance and the education and working with us to make sure that we're doing this in a very culturally appropriate way as well, and something that I think will really bring this whole community together and make people feel like this is our community that represents all of us that live here. And I think that was kind of what we were going for, and I'm just so thrilled that it actually turned out to be. And my one request only, because I like to not put too much of my input on, but was that I wanted something that was going to be a badass brand. And that's literally, Bree always quotes me on there, wants a badass brand. And I think this is exactly a badass brand right here. This is, this is a badass brand.
So, Mr. Badass, if I may. we had many sessions with that name and moniker brought up. So that circle is the compass bearings to be all inclusive of everyone that comes in and leaves Prince Rupert. So that's the whole, if you see the whole meaning behind that circle there with the frog inside. So it's got all the, because we're marine people, and a lot of commerce goes through here. So and we're trying to be community oriented and inclusive of everybody. And I think of Prince Rupert as the beginning of something special. Yeah. Because when you live away from here, you come here, wow. Try living in a reserve where there's water gets shut off or hydro. So to me, this is a new beginning. In our language, we call it sita'a. Means fresh new beginning. So I thank you all for your time, and I appreciate this opportunity. It was a real honor to work with everybody and meet Mr. Badass in person.
That'll be my new nickname, I guess. Okay, is there any other comments?
I think Uncle Barry is sticking, actually. He's got some legendary.
Stand up and
Mr.
take
Mayor?
that picture down right behind you.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so the recommendation that is council approved by resolution, the attached logo design and brand guidelines developed by Will Creative in partnership with Russell Mather, Simpson Artist.
I'll move
Moved
that.
by Councillor Murrow, seconded
Second.
by Councillor Scout Morvan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much. The Will team, it'll be sad not to be working with you so closely anymore, but we had such a great time working with you guys, and really hope to see you guys again in the future, but it's been so great. Oh, Gurvinder, I didn't see your hand up. Gurvinder, sorry. You got something to say, sorry.
Everything been said, like I think it's a great project, and I would like to thank everybody involved in this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Gurvinder. My apologies, I didn't see your hand up there. Okay, any final parting comments, you guys, on the screen?
I'd just like to reiterate the journey to date has been so rewarding and educational, and like I said, as collaborative as it gets. And I don't feel the journey's quite over yet. I think there's a few more kind of steps along the way, like signage, for example. But yeah, this couldn't have been created by any one person. It could only be created by the community involved. So we are immensely proud.
Yeah,
Great.
and know that we'll share all the wonderful things that were shared tonight with Greenie as well. I really wish she could have experienced them, but yeah, just echoing that, I think it's a project that you truly feel proud to be a part of, and just really excited to see this go out into the world now.
Mm-hmm. And big shout out to Veronica for having pull this all off.
Yes, Veronica, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Rosa, because I was on maternity leave for a year.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you.
Okay, guys, just make sure you tell all the other cities we were the best city to work with, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, have a great night. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everything. Thank you, Russell.
Bye.
That would have been a great way to end the meeting, actually, but we'll move on. So, item H, report from our Director of Operations and Intergovernmental Relations regarding Master Service Agreements Award Colliers Project Leaders. Go ahead, Mr. Peachy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that Mayor and Council award the owner's representative RFP to Colliers Project Leaders. And the report is here. We went to an RFP in 2020, and we are looking to award this. It was a publicly put out RFP on BC Bid, and there are no budget impacts associated with it at this time, and it is part of Council's strategic plan. Thank you.
Great. So a recommendation that Mayor and Council award the owner's representative RFP to Colliers Project Leaders, CPL. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. Discussion? All is in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion's carried. Item 4I, a resolution from a closed meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the closed meeting of Council of February 28th, the following resolution was passed. Moved by Councillor Cunningham and seconded by Councillor Skelton Morvan that Corinne Bombin, Chief Financial Officer, be appointed Chief Elections Officer, and that Rosa Maria Miller, Corporate Administrator, be appointed as Deputy Elections Officer for the 2022 General Municipal Election.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from our approval officer regarding the City of Prince Rupert subdivision. I guess nothing else to add to this. Recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to the City of Prince Rupert subdivision servicing bylaw number 3486/2022. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. Discussion? Go ahead.
Just one thing, it's, I think it's 10C, the one about in lieu for landscape costs, that if it's not possible or feasible, there's a 75% in lieu to the city for the total cost estimate. What would happen with that 75% then if the landscaping isn't done?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just looking at it right now. So, with that cost, we would look to complete the works. We would take that money and do what we can with that, or put it towards local park improvements in the area, if there wasn't any opportunity to do it on the frontage of the property.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Next, the delegation bylaw. So recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to the City of Prince Rupert Delegation Amendment Bylaw number 3487/2022. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Skelton Morvan. Any final comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. And then we have the business regulations and licensing bylaw number 3476/2021. So recommendation that council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert business regulations and licensing bylaw number 3476/2021. Moved by Councillor Skelton Morvan, second by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion.
Mr. Buchan, I'm just wondering if there's anything that you have taken away from the speakers earlier in the evening that may be something that we should look at changing on this?
Through the mayor, what I took away from the speakers was a great deal of support for this. Some questions, I think we answered the questions. There's one question that what hasn't been answered, and that was basically I think was asked by Councillor Cunningham, is with respect to a property that is not up to standard. How does somebody know that it's not? So somebody might not complain. Having a brief chat with the delegation after the committee of the whole meeting, they would undertake to actually do some education so that tenants would know about the bylaw and the property standards, so there would be a greater awareness for them to actually know what the bylaw says and get the city through a complaint process, get involved. That's something that we don't have the ability to do right now because the bylaw is not in place. So this bylaw actually increases the capacity for the city to have more of a role in ensuring that rental properties are properly maintained.
So what about his comment about the relocation piece, where it's up to the landlord to relocate or to... So, because that would be a little bit concerning, I think, if you're... And how does that apply exactly? So, I mean, maybe when it comes to, like, large rentals, but when it comes to, like, a home, is that... Maybe you could shed some clarity, because I thought that he made a good point about that.
If this bylaw has to come back for a final reading, if I can bring an answer back at that time, I would appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, that was a good point, I felt.
Yeah.
So
No,
that'd be
fair
good to get some information for that. Other questions?
The one other technical piece was that he had said that there was another change to the residential tenancy guidelines last year. Is that worth us deleting at this stage?
I'll check on that. I'm not sure that that's the case. I mean, our lawyer went through this very carefully, so I would be surprised if this is inconsistent with with the currency of the legislation, but I'll check on that too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Did I bring this on the table? Yes?
Yes, you did.
Okay, it's getting late now. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council. Councillor Adie.
Just fairly briefly to acknowledge with great delight the fact that we had people in the room tonight and people present to present their views to us. I'd like to acknowledge that for whatever reason, there seems to be a lot of issues that have been dealt with tonight that represent passion. Passion and creativity, passion in terms of the loved ones in the family and what have you. So I think that's a really, I hope that's a step in the direction that we're going in terms of getting some semblance of normal back. But I also want to temper that a little bit, because I think we need to acknowledge that events are transpiring far away from us that affect people here by nature of their cultural connections and background and family histories. And I think we need to acknowledge that our thoughts are with those people that are affected by the events that are happening in the Ukraine. And I don't necessarily confine that to people of Ukrainian heritage. I'm sure that these events are affecting people of Russian heritage a great deal as well. So I just want to express my empathy with the impact that might be having on people.
Thank you, Councillor. Other comments? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Murrow, second by Councillor 80. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, have a great evening. See you in 2 weeks.